Hey dorks, just a quick message reminding you to head over to twitch.tv/mindgappodcast and give us a follow. We live stream when we record our new podcast episodes, and we're live streaming video game sessions on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock p.m. Central Time. We're playing super rad stuff like Among Us, Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes, Jackbox games, and Tabletop Simulator. Come hang out and play along with us. That's twitch.tv/mindgappodcast.
Mind Gap Podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Mind Gap Podcast. I'm Doug.
And I'm Noah.
Wait, what?
Hi.
It's Noah. Where's Justin? Are you asking? Where is he? I mean,
we don't talk about it.
No. Yeah, we don't talk about him anymore because he's gone for this episode. No, Justin's out and about taking a well-earned vacation, and instead of doubling up on episodes in a week or maybe even missing one, we were like, what if we got a guest host? And Noah was kind enough to sacrifice himself to the podcast elder gods and has joined us for this week's episode. So Noah, welcome and thank you for being here, man.
Welcome and thank you for being here.
Slotty says there's a puzzle basement somewhere where he's locked in. Maybe. He's got to basically Sudoku his way out of it, and Justin's bad at math. Yes, and ignore his Instagram because that's all deep state propaganda. You're absolutely right.
Yes, mostly.
That's what he did. That's what he dabbles in.
They call Chicago the deep state of the Midwest.
That is true. It's the deep dish deep state of the Midwest.
Go down to the South for some deep dish propaganda.
Speaking of like pizza, real quick, have you ever had St. Louis style pizza? Like I've heard of it, but I don't know what it is.
No.
No? I'm gonna look it up.
Is
real
that
quick.
where they only put the sauce on the left?
Louis style pizza. I've heard a lot of people bash it, but I don't know what it is. It's
hates it.
Distinct type of pizza popular in the Midwest city. Oh, cool. Thank you for telling me. It makes sense that it's St. Louis style and it's popular in the Midwest because it's from fucking St. Louis. The crust is made without yeast, as opposed to deep dish Chicago style or thin but leavened New York style pizza, yielding a somewhat crisp and cracker-like crust that cannot be easily folded. Yeah, I don't think I'd like this. I don't think I'd like it. That crust doesn't sound like it would appeal to me.
Sounds great.
Yeah. It also includes white processed cheese known as Provel. Provel is a trademark for a combination of three cheeses, provolone, Swiss, and white cheddar. Ugh. Yeah.
That sounds fine. The cheese sounds fine, but the thin, the extra ultra thin. And I mean, Slotty says it's ketchup on a giant saltine cracker, but that doesn't sound bad to me. So I might have to make my way to the big ol' upside down U city.
I mean, look, if I was at some place and they were serving it and that was the food that was there, I would definitely try it, but it's not something I'm going to seek out or try to replicate. Thin crust just doesn't really do it for me. Like, I don't mind it now because I'm not trying to eat like a monster, but I don't know, man. Thin crust always just felt like a lie to me. Like, why are we even bothering?
I like you can get a lot of flavor in that little tiny little slice of thinness.
Yeah, I just, I don't know. I guess I grew up with the best with some, Pizza Hut, back in the day. And I really liked their pan pizza. So whenever I would have that and then I got thin crust, I'd be like, why are we pretending here? It's like having
I like Pizza Hut's thin and crispy too.
Yeah, right? It's
I'm
like
a fan.
It's like why, it's like trying to have a keto dessert. It's like, why are we bothering? Like, this isn't going to be good. We're lying to ourselves.
I think it's all toppings dependent too.
Fair point.
I think that like getting ham and bacon on thin crust is the way to go. Whereas if I'm getting, a regular classic style or even maybe like a deep dish or a Detroit style, I don't want ham on it, or I don't want like mushrooms on that. because I don't want like it's like 2 layers of thickness, and I don't want 2 layers of thickness. I want a consistent layer of thickness.
Interesting. So yeah, see, for me, I kind of, I someone once said, when they go to an ice cream shop, they order a scoop of vanilla because they're like, listen, I want to try your basic stuff. If you can't get the basic thing right, then I don't care how fancy and what other crap you put in it. You got to impress me with your vanilla. And it's kind of the same way with pizza, right? Like, give me your cheese, keep it simple. Let's see what it is, right? Show me what you got. And then from there, we can add other things. But I don't know.
I go to an ice cream shop and I say, give me the one thing that's not ice cream because I can't eat it.
You can't eat dairy?
Not the day before a road trip.
If I want to be nice, I won't do that, Making you impossibly hungry, Dread Pirate Pash. Yeah. I've been watching, I'll watch a video on YouTube. It's like, oh, check out this thing. Like, check out this triple chocolate cookie dough recipe. I'm like, I'll just watch it. And then I'm like, I get obsessed and I'm like, guess what I'm making tomorrow?
Guess what I've already added to my shipped.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, I have those ingredients. I have all the ingredients. I guess I can just make this tomorrow. And that's what I've been doing lately. I actually last night made the pasta inspired by the movie Luca. It was the Trinetto, whatever. It was like pesto, yellow potatoes, and fettuccine. And it's the first time I made pesto, and it was fucking amazing. It was so good.
Gotta do it.
Yeah.
See, Hannah doesn't like pesto, so I can't.
No?
Can't ever do anything like that.
Yeah, Jill loves basil, but she was really nervous. She goes, pesto I've had. She goes, I've never had it on pasta. I've had it on some sandwiches and things like that. And I was like, there's no way Natalie's going to like this at all. She fucking loved it. She had like 3 platefuls of it. Just.
Dang.
It did have pine nuts, Slotty. Lightly toasted. I toasted them, did the pine nuts, did the garlic, did the basil, fresh basil leaves, all that shit. I did the whole thing. It was really great.
Man. Yeah, just getting excited now. Going to New Orleans next week. Gonna friggin'
dude, you're gonna
bring some recipes home.
Yeah, man, that's so exciting.
That's what I'm going for. I'm doing it.
That's so cool. I've never actually been down to Louisiana or New Orleans. Obviously, I've never been to Louisiana, never been to New Orleans. But yeah, I'd love to check it out sometime. Take pics of the wildlife.
I won't be seeing any wildlife. I'll be in the middle of the city the entire time. I'm not leaving the city. Not going to the bayou.
No.
Not this time.
Jared's like, Hannah doesn't like pesto? Are you sure you want to marry that girl? Yeah.
I'll get over it.
You're such a noble man. I'll get over it. All right, so before we get too far in, let's go over some housekeeping. First things first, if you don't already, please follow and check us out on Spotify, wherever else you get your podcast. But don't forget to check us out on Spotify. Podcast exists there, and we exist there. Next up, you should join our Discord server. Let's just get right to it. You should. You should come and join our happy, weird amalgamation of a family and hang out with us. Discord, if you're not familiar with it, is essentially just like a little online community. It's like a forum. It's like a chat room. And we've got all sorts of cool people in there. And we have a good time keeping up in touch with each other every day, posting memes, posting recipes. We have our own recipes channel now in there. We set up game nights. All sorts of fun stuff. Hang out, chat. It's great. We have ourselves a nice little family. So come hang out with us. To join our Discord, just head over to twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. In the About section, you'll see a little box. It says Discord. Click on that banner. It'll take you right over to our Discord. Join it. Come hang out with us. It'll be good. You get to see all the cool people and get to see the cool stuff that we get to do. Next up, check out our merch on redbubble.com. Head over to redbubble.com. In the search box, type in Mind Gap Podcast and pick yourself something up pretty nice. That was a weird combination of words, but it's August. You deserve something. You deserve a t-shirt, a sweatshirt, a travel mug, a pillow. I mean, anything. Merch. Go pick yourself up something nice and help support the podcast and get yourself something nice in the meantime. And last but not least, we do a live stream video game session every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Central on twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. And it's always a good time. Last weekend we played Left 4 Dead 2, which was great. Really fun, really enjoyable. And this weekend, kind of in the same vein, the new game Back for Blood is doing its beta test, and I'm gonna be playing the shit out of that game, and we're absolutely going to be streaming that. And I think we got a whole crew of people that'll be playing that as well. So
not me.
Well, I mean, what about Thursday and Friday?
I'll definitely be playing Thursday and Friday.
Yeah,
but I won't be around Saturday night.
Beta boy test. That's right. If you're not familiar with Back for Blood, essentially it's from the same creators that did the original Left 4 Dead. And it's definitely in that same vein. You've got survivors, you've got zombie-like creatures, and it's really cool. Wolf's Lore was very kind enough to give me an alpha access several months ago, which I tried out, and it was really cool. So I'm looking forward to... I'm all in on this game. I'm all in. And you can check it out, too, actually. If you go and pre-order the game now, you can actually get in on the beta, which I think is August 5th through August 9th, and they're doing another one later in August. So if you want to check that out, I highly recommend it. But otherwise, if you just want to see me and some other of our cool crew do it, Saturday, 8 p.m. Central, twitch.tv/mindgappodcast. We're going to be playing it, y'all, and it's going to be good. All right, now that that's out of the way. That was a burp and a half right there. Let's see here. What do we got? Chat is blowing up. All right. Cool. So let's hop into... First of all, Noah, how was your week, man? How are you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah, just had a big old fat family reunion.
Ooh.
That I got back from Sunday. It's Tuesday. I was supposed to get back today, but I came home early. So yes, very cool. How about you?
It's pretty good. I had an awesome weekend. It's so funny because like the weekend comes and like I have so much shit that I'm doing, and then as soon as the weekend's over, I completely forget like what happened. But I know Saturday was a big day because we went to the zoo, met up with a college friend of mine and his family, and the kids went and had a hell of a morning, just loving the zoo. It was really fun. And then Natalie had her girls' night on Saturday nights because while I'm streaming, she hangs out with Jill and they have a girls' night. And our neighbor and Natalie fucking love each other, and so Natalie invited her over for girls' night, which was great. So they got to go and hang out and have a good time, which was really cool. And that was a lot of fun. So yeah, it was really good, really relaxing, a lot of fun. It was pretty cool. So
nice.
Yeah, man, it was a good time. I'm just trying to enjoy as much of the weather as I can before it inevitably gets fucking cold and snowy.
Yeah,
it brings me such sadness.
I'm like enjoying it too, but it's also hot, and I don't have air conditioning or anything like that, so I'm ready for it to get cold. I can crack my windows open. I can just let the snow pile in. I can build a snowman in my living room.
No, Noah. I'm sorry. As your non-existent landlord, I'm going to tell you no, that's not okay. And Slotty, who says fall is the best season, everyone says that. And I have to disagree with you. It's not that fall is so bad, it's that what comes after it. Fall is the predecessor to winter. And whenever fall rolls around, I think I'm still holding on to childhood stuff because summer was the best because school was out. And spring was great because it was the end of the school year and it was starting to get warm again. So spring gets me pumped for summer. And then fall was the start of the school year, which is fine in like September, a little bit in October, but then it starts getting bad because winter's around the corner. Now, the upside is that you've got Labor Day, and then there's Halloween, and then there's Thanksgiving, and then there's Christmas. Like, so there's some like big holidays that come up, which is pretty cool and pretty exciting. But, you know, I don't know. Like, I like Thanksgiving a lot. I like cooking for that sort of stuff. I love, you know, pumpkins and shit like that. So that's pretty good. But in general, it's like, to me in my head, it's like starting getting darker and darker and darker, and the warm weather just starts fading away, and then I get really fucking sad. So Doug hates autumn. That's right. But here's the thing. Well, yeah, because it's the start of the sadness, Slotty. Yeah. I would play Doug Hates Stuff, but I don't have the audio drop for that.
It's all just a matter of perspective, really.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Hey, Doug. Hey, not Justin. What's up, Wolfslore?
That is my name. Don't wear it out.
That's right. That's right. That's right. All right, so let's talk about our first thing tonight. Our first thing on the docket is a story that was pretty wildly last week, but was Scarlett Johansson sues Disney for breach of contract over the Black Widow release. Essentially, the story on this is that Scarlett Johansson had a contract with Disney. It was kind of like a typical contract, pre-pandemic, where if certain box office metrics were met, she would earn bonuses in different increments. And this movie was delayed significantly because of the pandemic, and they wanted a theatrical release, but they also released the movie in theaters and on streaming at the same time. And while it had a very good opening weekend, the second weekend saw a significant dip, and Scarlett Johansson potentially could have missed out on about $50 million. And so she's suing Disney for lost wages. What do you think about that, Noah?
I mean, at first glance, you're thinking Disney can do no wrong. It's a corporation. What corporation has ever done anything to hurt its employees or, why would they do it for the money? It just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But then you dig into it a little bit further and you start to think, well, all right. From my perspective, I'm not going to movie theaters anyways. And so at any rate, I think they could have just been like, hey, ScarJo, we'll give you we'll renegotiate the contract. We'll add the Disney Plus revenue to the contract. Is that so hard for them to just do? If they were supposed pre-pandemic, if they were going to be giving her whatever millions and millions and millions this is going to make, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense that they would, on one, breach the contract to begin with, but two, just not go ahead and renegotiate it.
Yeah. Yeah, from my perspective as just a viewer, I'm fine. Let me preface by I love movies. I loved going to the movie theaters. I strangely don't miss it. I don't miss going to the theater, mostly because of other people. In recent years, other people have just most recent, podcasts I've railed about people who have ruined my movie going experience because going to the movies is a very special thing for me. And when people are there on their fucking phones or talking or whatever, I can't tune that out and I get really upset and get really frustrated. So for me, I have a very comfortable and good setup at home and I'm totally fine with watching that stuff. And not to mention that I don't just go to the movies just to go to the movies. I go for movies that I really, really, really want to see. And as I've said, in previous podcasts, Warner Brothers releasing their slate on HBO Max for 2021, I was on board with that because I saw movies I normally wouldn't have seen in theaters. I like Mortal Kombat and, Godzilla versus King Kong and, all sorts of shit. I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I would love to watch it on there. And even if it's premium, I wasn't super into the Black Widow movie, so I haven't seen it yet. But if it's something I was into, I totally would have bought it on the premium on Disney Plus and totally watched it. I wouldn't have had a problem with that at all. I would prefer to be in the comfort of my own home. But for Scarlett Johansson's perspective, that sucks. I really get it, and I think you're absolutely right. From a business standpoint, being a business, part of it's hey man, you signed the contract. It is what it is. And I'd also, you could probably maybe even argue that Disney lost money on this anyway too, because it didn't do maybe as well as it could have, but that's all theoretical dollars.
Yeah. I'm just of the mindset of, I don't think there was that much interest in the movie to begin with. As a post Endgame, post Spider-Man world here that we're in now is it doesn't add anything to the next part of it. So unless you're a Marvel fan that is just, you gotta see everything, you're willing to shell out the $30 for the in theater or the Disney Plus experience. Like the average, and I'd say I'm like a higher than average as far as the Marvel fan go. Like I've seen all of them. I've read comics. This is just not one that interests me at all. And so, and I certainly don't think I'm alone. And I think that the box office is of course skewed because there's people that just aren't going to theaters like they would. But I don't think it's that skewed to like more than $100 million. Like I truly don't think. I think $100 million is maybe the cutoff for people that maybe would have gone to see the movie in theaters, but didn't, just because it was in theaters. And then I think that some of those people might have just bought it on Disney Plus. So,
no, I think you bring up a really good point, which is I think the tools or the metrics that we used to have, like I don't think we're going to see $1 billion, grossing movie in the theaters for a long time. Like I don't think. Yeah. That what used to be and what's measured as like super successful. I mean, I saw, stories about, I can't remember what movies were coming out recently, but it's like, this movie did $50 million and it's opening. It was great. And I was like, I mean, we're probably just that starved for some sort of like excitement about that stuff. But I just, people are not going to be going to the theaters like they used to. And personally, I think we need to reevaluate how we distribute movies. Like I've always been kind of against the National Association of Theater Owners. Like I feel like those guys are just doing what they're doing because that's what we've done. And I'm like, look, this pandemic has shined a light on a lot of things. And I think one of the things is that people definitely more people than we think would prefer to stay home to watch this stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, there's a big argument for just going digital for a lot of things anyways, especially as the technology to produce not exactly the theater experience, but having a high quality television with high quality sound system and sitting in a comfortable chair. I can do all those things at home.
Exactly.
It's like the only thing that's missing from my movie experience at home is I don't have a sound bar or I don't have surround sound audio.
Yeah.
But if I were to take the time, I could set up my headphones, like my Bluetooth headphones to my TV now. And that is arguably a better experience than having the Dolby Atmos speakers. So
that's a really good point, because I have a sound bar and I have a decent TV and I'm happy to crank that shit up and enjoy a movie. And like I definitely enjoy being in a movie theater with that sound system and everything like that. It's great. It's just the other people that I don't want to be around. And also, I don't know, man. Like some people are like, oh, I need the movie theater popcorn. Well, I can make that shit in my home now.
Yeah, and as we've discussed many times in the Mind Gap Discord, go to the Mind Gap Discord and join the community. It's movie popcorn's not actually that good, and if you just take the time to make it yourself, you can make it way better.
Yeah, absolutely. And
it's not that much of a time commitment, and it's way cheaper.
Absolutely, it's way cheaper. I don't know, like I just look at that stuff as I don't know. I'm actually really bummed that I don't miss the movie theater experience as much as I feel like I should.
Yeah. I think as far as the consensus is on like the Scarlet Johansson thing, it sucks because she's an employee of this company and she deserves the money that she has worked for. And I mean, she's earned her spot in like the Marvel cast. Like she's an MVP of the entire cinematic universe. She's been there since 2008. Like she deserves like all of the money that she's making.
Yeah.
I think the argument then just has to turn into, are things going to change and should they change for the better of taking in that content?
That's a really great question. I agree. Like I'm obviously on Scarlett Johansson's side. I think it's kind of a shitty business partner thing to do in the midst of a pandemic, essentially just be like, to make the decision to release them both.
She doesn't need the money either.
No.
I'm not saying that's like, oh, ScarJo's not getting her 50 million from this movie. That's oh no.
Yeah.
But still, it's just a shitty thing for the corporation to do to the person that is doing the work.
Well, I think you're gonna tarnish that relationship where maybe that person won't want to work with you again. It's kind of like how Christopher Nolan's like, fuck Warner Brothers. I'm never working with those pieces of shit ever again after they pulled that, you know, that stuff of just launching all their stuff on streaming. Like, I don't think you'd want to do that. And how much is $50 million really that big of a deal to, or renegotiating that? Is that really going to cost Disney that much to do that?
It's just for every $30 ticket that they sell on Disney Plus, just give her $2.
Right. Give her a percentage of that, you know?
Because they're going to sell, 3 or 4 million tickets. It's not going to add up to what she would have made at the box office, but what she was going to make at the box office pre-pandemic doesn't add up now anyways. It's all kaput.
Yeah, you think at least to show a good faith, be like, hey, look, you're not going to hit those benchmarks. It's just most likely not going to happen. So how about we figure something out in the interim where we find something between this and we'll try to find something equivalent or close to it on the back end for the Disney Plus subscriptions, and just hopefully we'll make that work. I don't know. Maybe there's a reason why I didn't create Disney and I'm not making boatloads of money is because I'm not a fucking prick when it comes to that stuff.
Yeah. I mean, if I were to have made Disney, I probably would have made every single decision exactly the same with no differences.
Yeah, I think more than anything, it'll be interesting to see moving forward how this stuff will pan out, because with the Delta variant ravaging now again, I see a lot of the stuff kind of backing off again. Like, some of these things are like only in theaters. I'm like, I don't think that's necessarily going to be the case, Yeah. And what's the other option? Delay again? Like, because some of these movies like Dune, I mean, you got to release them, Now, I do kind of like, I think if I read correctly, like Suicide Squad is being launched in theaters, then 30 days after, it's on HBO Max. I think that's what I read somewhere.
As far as what I have seen, it's on HBO Max for 30 days the day of.
Oh, is that what it is?
I think that's what it is. I think it comes out on August 6th or August 5th, and it is on HBO Max for 30 days.
Maybe I read that wrong then. So you're right. In theaters on HBO Max, same day as the theatrical release for a limited time. That's fucking dope, man. That's awesome. And that's so cool.
Well, I'll be taking a little peek ski at it. I'll probably watch it in the airport.
Well, because also like the movie Reminiscent with Hugh Jackman doesn't look awesome, but I'm curious. I'm like, I'll fucking watch it if it's there. Yeah. And then like Suicide Squad, I will be watching that on Friday. Like, I'll check that out. I'll pass on Space Jam. I'm good. It's I don't need to see that.
It was fine.
Yeah, I'm good. And then there's one called Malignant. I think I've seen some stuff for that, but I'm not entirely sure if I remember what it is. Cry Macho, Dune, same thing.
Dune.
King Richard. A Matrix movie.
This is great because I'm already paying for HBO Max, so I'm not like investing extra into seeing these movies because there's a lot of games coming out in the next 3 months, and I got to spend my money on that.
What games are you looking forward to?
Deathloop and Kena both come out in September. 2 highly anticipated games from me. New VR game called I Expect You to Die 2 comes out. I Expect You to Die 1 was very good, and I'm very excited for the second one. I got this fantasy draft thing I'm really riding on. I don't have any money on it, but I would just really like to not lose. So.
That's so cool. It's weird. It says Untitled Matrix movie. How can you have an Untitled Matrix movie that's due out December 22nd? How is that a thing?
I think that is the title.
Why?
I think it's called Untitled Matrix movie.
Why?
Because it's like, that's definitely not. But I think that it probably has something to do with the Matrix and how the Matrix is a computer, and it's a commentary on how computers aren't creative, but people are. So we need to keep people around.
Man, there's no there's nothing about this at all other than like, hey, there's a thing.
Yeah.
The Matrix rebooted.
Sure.
Jared says I should watch Space Jam with Natalie and explain what all the Hanna-Barbera cartoons are. That sounds exhausting. And no, I don't want to do that. Hard pass.
It could be the Matrix, unplug it and plug it back in.
There you go. Did it work? Is it working?
Did it work?
Jared just said the same thing.
Dang it.
Yeah, even like King Richard. That's another one. It's about it's got Will Smith and about the Venus and Serena Williams. Like, I might check that out because it's there. And this greatly appeals to me. This sort of distribution and release. Like, I'm all for it. And I don't know, man. I think HBO Max, like, everyone was shitting on them in the beginning, but I'm like, I don't know, man. I think they took a creative business risk, and for me, it's working.
I'm there.
I'm there for it.
For it.
Yeah, I'm a fan of it. So, but I hope moving forward that the studios can figure this shit out. I think this is a big opportunity. I know they have to appease the theaters, or they could potentially lose some significant partners. But also, this is probably, insensitive, but to those theaters, I want to say, get your fucking shit together. Like, think about the times and the technology that exists. And I think to some extent we have to accept that some of these theaters are going to go away. And
would it be such a bad thing if the box office was less of a priority? If we had less $2-3 billion movie productions in the world, maybe we get a couple like $1-2 million budget movies instead. Would that be so awful?
Oh man, no! Right now, Justin has got a giant erection, and he doesn't know why.
I gotta bring in that energy from Justin.
Oh, that would. But you know what? I've enjoyed these huge movies, but I'm with you. Like, I think you can do a lot more with a lot less. And I think we can explore. I mean, we've seen so much with streaming, right? There's so many things that can be created. And you're right. What if we took a different approach? I mean, I think now, and this has been kind of the thing for years, more people, I think, flock to a creative series, even if it's a limited series, than to a movie. You have more time to explore and to develop things. Like, I'm thinking of like The Outsider on HBO. Like, that was a phenomenal Stephen King adaptation. That was awesome. I don't know if they're going to make any more to it, but if it stands by itself, it stands by itself. It's fucking great. We told a cool story, and we're going from there. Marvel, some of the Marvel shows right now, I've liked all of them so far. I've enjoyed all of them. I think they're great.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like the late 90s and the early 2000s were like the prime of cinema.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because a lot of those movies that were coming out that were like self-contained, original IPs, things that were never meant to have spin-offs, just stories that a person had an idea of. And I don't want to be the person that's like, there's no original stories in Hollywood today. But I think it just lends something to not necessarily having an original story, but just having a story and telling that story in the allotted 2 hours rather than serialization. I think having a couple things that are serialized, big budget, that's fine. But I don't need everything to be a bigger world. Sometimes I am perfectly fine with a movie. Maybe a second movie. Let's make a crazy idea, a third, and then don't touch the franchise again. Like, that's. But I think that, like, there were a lot of really good movies that came out in '99.
Yeah.
And still haven't been talked about bringing back since. And I think that's perfect, because that was like right before VFX really took off, but there were still some there. A lot of that stuff aged well because it's still kind of practical.
Mm-hmm.
It's just good movies. It's just self-contained stories that everybody can go back and enjoy.
I think that's because this is where the business takes over, right? You see something that has 8 books that is a huge draw with the fan base, and people are like, let's make all those movies, and just think about, let's just jerk off to all the money we're going to potentially make with this. And we've seen grand successes and also big failures with that sort of stuff. And because it's easy, right? I get it from a marketing standpoint. If people know this property, you have to do less work to get them interested in it. But sometimes you want that thing that's standalone, and I think right now streaming is the best way to tell some of those stories, even if it's just like Loki. I thought it was great. 6 episodes. Like when I first heard that WandaVision was 9, I'm like, only 9, and then each one got less and less, and I'm like, this is perfect. 6 episodes. We're gonna tell a nice little story.
Is good.
It's great. It feels really good as opposed to 8 seasons. And
I understand that it is kind of part of this bigger universe, but it's all stuff we've never seen before, all characters we've never seen before, with the exception of the main character, which isn't even like the character that we've been with the whole time.
Yeah.
And it's like, it was good, and it ties in at the end, whatever.
Yeah.
But I could truly take or leave the ending. I could honestly take or leave the Marvel branding. Yeah. And it's just a good, nice story that I really enjoyed.
Yeah, exactly. Because at the end of the day, and we've talked about this in our Discord, I loved your take on Star Wars and everything like that, which was really good. But for me, at the end of the day, it's about telling a good story. If you tell a good story, that's all that matters to me. And obviously, you can enhance that with cool things in different aspects. But for me, I want to be drawn to something that is going to inspire me and that's going to lock me in and lock in my attention. And if that's something that can be told in 2 hours, awesome. If that's something that it can be told over 8 seasons, awesome. If it's in between, cool. Like I'm fine with whatever. I just want a good, cohesive story that is worth my time. My time is incredibly valuable. Yeah. I feel like such a dick saying that. Like, my time is worth so much.
What's so good about your time? What about my time?
But I realize now, because I had oodles of time growing up, but I didn't realize how much time I had. And now I'm like, oh my God. Like, I rarely get to sit down and watch a movie in one sitting. I have to watch it piecemeal. And at first I was like, I'll never do that. But now I'm like, hey man, if this is the only way I'm going to get to watch this movie, I'll watch it 45 minutes at a time, because those are the windows of time that I get. That's cool. That works for me. But I don't want to waste my time. I get mad when I watch a movie that it just peters out. Like I watched No Sudden Moves on HBO. It had Don Cheadle and Benicio del Toro. Who else? David Harbour. Matt Damon's in it for a little bit. Great, just amazing actors. Just absolutely amazing. And I was in it for the first 2/3, and the last third I was like, all right, bring it home. And it didn't bring it home. I was like, man, fuck this movie, It's like, come on, like, you gotta,
where was Bugs Bunny,
right? Or like watching something like Tenet and it just being like, god damn it, like, just
watching something like Tenet and already being frustrated.
Yeah, it's like,
and then getting more and more frustrated, and then getting more frustrated, and then thinking, oh, that was kind of neat, and then, oh wait, no, this movie sucks.
Yeah, because I can handle something that's just entertaining. That's totally fine, right? Like, there's room in the world for those kinds of things, but I also kind of get upset where I'm like, Tenet is good, I will never understand the hate. Well, Jared, I mean, the best I can say is that it's a movie that looks great. I think the concept of it is great. I think the execution is absolutely atrocious.
Well, I think that they had I think probably one of the better things that they did in that movie was tell the viewer not to think about it. And if you don't think about it, the movie's good. If you ignore the plot and think, okay, if there's any plot holes, just don't worry about it. I think that's a really neat trick that scriptwriters should use more often. I think if in The Rise of Skywalker, they were like, all right, guys, we know you don't like this movie, but if you just don't think about the fact that you don't like the movie, I think you'll really like the movie. And then let me watch it. And then I think it'll be great.
I think because it sets expectations, right? Because, that's all this ever is expectations. Are your expectations met when you go and watch this thing? And I think the problem is when those expectations fall short. And, one of my favorite moments of that is in the movie Looper, where Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character is like asking a lot of questions to Bruce Willis's character. And after a while, Bruce Willis's character gets mad. He's like, we could sit here all day talking about time travel shit and none of it matters. That was like the writers saying, don't think too much about this because it's almost like they were asking the questions through Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character about time travel, and then they were basically like, see, we know you're out there thinking about this. We're going to tell you, don't fucking worry about it. Let's watch this movie. You ready to move forward? Let's move forward. I'm like, part of me respects that. I was like, cool. It's like, just stop asking questions, God damn it. I respect it.
I respect it.
Speaking of stories and stories that are that can be told, Dungeons and Dragons has had its best year ever in 2020. It was a banner year for Dungeons and Dragons. According to this article from GameDaily.biz, which sounds like a totally legitimate website. Let's see here. They had their most successful year. It marked their 7th consecutive year of growth with sales up 33%. And it also boasts that it has more than 50 million players to date. I don't know how they track that, but apparently they do. And
Census.
Census.
It's part of the census data.
It's part of the census. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, a source book that was published in November of last year, is.
And the thing is, Tasha's Cauldron is a great book.
It is.
It's a pretty good one.
It's really cool. It was the most pre-ordered book in the game's history, and this game has been around for 47 years. So, I started doing Dungeons and Dragons a couple years ago and have become absolutely infatuated with it. I played in a campaign for a little while. I DM'd a campaign, and now I'm actually working on building my own homebrewed one-shot to host at some point in time.
Nice.
And I am one of the folks who fell in love with Critical Role a little late. I know for some folks that, it's one of those, it's the gold standard of like, everyone likes it because they like it. But for me, I have thoroughly enjoyed it. It's the one podcast I've been listening to solely been listening to that over the last few weeks because I find the story very engaging and I love the voice actors in it. I think they tell a great story and I'm just completely engrossed in it.
I will say Critical Role, I'm very glad it exists. I love Matt Mercer to death. It's too long, too many people. Yeah, I can't listen to D&D if there's more than 4 people at a time, honestly. It's just, or at least 4 players. It's just too much.
Yeah.
Too much for me.
That's fair.
I can't keep focus. I just end up tuning it out, and then I'm like, I don't want to listen to just people talk about stuff I don't understand. Because if I just missed 3 hours of their story, then I'm lost.
No, it's true, and that's what's fascinating about. I think what I've been more just blown away by is just Critical Role's success and how it's amassed such an incredible fan base, and to the point where. I mean, I got on the Critical Role train way, way, way late, and I just remember, I was just slowly listening to episodes. And at one point, I'm like, oh, they do a live show, and there are 1,000, 2,000 people in a fucking convention hall watching these people play make believe and improv on a stage for 3 to 4 hours. And they're engrossed. They're cheering. They're gasping. They're like, when Matt Mercer says roll initiative, the crowd goes wild. When he says, how do you want to do this? Everyone loses their fucking minds. When people roll low, they're like, no. They're engaged with it. And I find myself kind of being the same way. Like when something good happens, like one time I was like, it just in real life, I'm like, how is it making me feel for this shit? It's completely make-believe that they're just making up on the spot.
Critical Role is like cheesecake to me. It's something that it's got all the things I like. It's something I really wish I enjoyed, just can't.
No, that's totally fair. Like, I think what also sells it for me too is that everyone on that show is incredibly humble about what's going on, and they are the least cocky or arrogant about it. They are. The couple of live shows that I've listened to when they're getting announced and the crowd is just cheering for an extra 2 minutes and they sit down and they're like Matt Mercer just turns to everyone and goes, can you fucking believe we're doing this right now? Like they're just absolutely just trying to soak it in that people give a shit about them playing this game that, is just as nerdy as you can get in a lot of ways. And the fact that based on the stuff that they made up, they're making a cartoon that
I will be engaging in that content
for sure. And it's they not only did they get it funded through Kickstarter, then Amazon purchased it, so they're going to have 2 seasons that have been purchased that will be playing on Amazon Prime sometime this year. It's going to be going, and I can't fucking wait for that, because what's also great is they have professional voice actors who will be voicing their characters. Like, it's they're so talented, and they essentially get to rewrite their stuff.
I would love if Amazon bought Enter the Gungeon.
Right? We want to do a limited series, Noah. We want to know about this Gunch
6
character.
episodes.
But
I think there needs to be more inspired by H.P. Lovecraft stuff.
Yeah,
out in the world.
I mean, you really liked what was that show on HBO?
Lovecraft. Yeah,
Country. Lovecraft Country. You're a big fan of that, right?
Which wasn't renewed for a 2nd season.
I know,
which is a really big bummer.
I was surprised.
I thought that show was super good.
I was hot and cold with it. There were episodes that I really liked, and there were other episodes where I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
There were things with the general production that I didn't like. But I always thought that, like, the acting was great.
Solid.
I hate to loop back to the Marvel talk, but oh jeez, what is his name? Oh god. The dude who plays the main character in Lovecraft Country, which I can't remember the name.
Oh, right. Yeah, he plays Kang the Conqueror.
Yes. So I had never seen him in anything before Lovecraft Country. I just never seen him before Jonathan Majors, and I was like, okay, this guy's like a good actor. He's playing like this meathead army dude, like pretty well. But then when he's in Kang the Conqueror in Loki, spoilers, he's like a charismatic, like big energy guy, and I'm like, I just can't see you as this guy.
I know. I had the same
strange
thing. I was so thrown off by it. I was like, this is a very different, eccentric character.
He's doing a very good job. Like he was acting great, but I had only seen him in one other thing.
Yeah.
So it was very strange. But yes, back to Dungeons and Dragons. Critical Role is great. I'm very glad it exists. I'm glad any content exists that brings people into a space that is, I'm a big fan of Dungeons and Dragons. I play the game. I play a lot of tabletop RPGs.
Yeah.
So anything that will come here, maybe get people are like, ooh, Matt Mercer, that's a cool guy. Maybe I want to try DMing. Maybe you like one of the characters. You're like, okay, I want to play. I got to find the DM.
Yeah.
And I think that stuff is cool. I mean, and it's easy to come by nowadays. I mean,
yes,
you can buy like Dungeons and Dragons starter kits in Walmart, Target. It's very easily accessible.
Yeah. I think I was reading in another article that their starter sets have like sales quadrupled. Like people are just more and more interested. I think part of it was from like Stranger Things. That show sort of, seeing these kids play it, and a lot of their stuff was rooted in that. Critical Role has also played a big part of that, and then also I think the pandemic has also played a part in it, because people were looking for shit to do while they were at home, and it's very easy. I've actually never played D&D in a physical setting. I've only done it remotely, and I think there's so much. I mean, I don't know. I can't compare it to being in person, but I find the production can be so much more interesting digitally, because you can do so much more visually and with the audio to sort of enhance the storytelling.
There is a really sweet program called Bardly that is a subscription program, but it's basically like mini online Discord servers that are meant for playing like curated music, that everyone joins this like room, and then the DM can play music to fit like the tone of like the dungeon or the town or which is a very cool system. I've had a very strange like D&D life, because I've been playing since I was like 13.
Oh wow.
But it was only during 2020 that I started to look more at the DMing side of things.
Oh, cool.
And look more like the game making type side, which of course Enter the Gungeon was my first time doing anything, at least to that scale. I've done a couple one shots here and there, but like 4 years. Fuck you, Jared. I might be the youngest person in the Discord, but I'm not that young. But also my very first time ever playing D&D was like with a dude who's been DMing for 30 years and played with 6 players. It was like a large scale adventure. We played for like 4 or 5 hours, like got pizza and like did the whole thing. And then my next time playing D&D was with a first time DM, and they were like equally fun for different reasons.
That's interesting.
And then since then, I've played with a bunch of first-time DMs. I've DM'd. It's like a whole thing. But like that's kind of the fun of the game, is that you can do anything in the game as you're playing it, or you can make the world and then have your players do anything.
Yeah, I remember in college, I had a friend reach out to me and be like, "Hey man, we play D&D like every Wednesday night. You should come by and play." And I was like, I can't do that. I'm not comfortable role playing. Like but I wanted to really bad. But I was stuck in most of my young adult life was I really wanted to do something, but Practical Doug was like, "What are you gonna do with that?" Like I would have loved to take more theater classes in high school.
Oh yeah.
But Practical Doug's like, "You can't do that. That doesn't line up with what you want to do." And D&D was another one of those things where I'm like, that sounds really cool, but I'm uncomfortable with the idea of role playing with other people. And then I took improv, and improv is very much like playing D&D, where you just fucking make shit up as you go. And as I started playing D&D, I'm like, oh my god, like this is so cool. It's overwhelming at first because it's literally you can do whatever you want, and it's just like roll to see what happens. And when the first time I was playing and the DM goes, "All right, what do you want to do?" I'm like, "What are my options?" He's like, "You can do whatever you want." I'm like, I don't like this.
And I think that's actually something that is hard for new players, and it's like my current DM, he's new, and we're players who wanted to show him how to play the game. And so a big part of it was, you kind of have to let us do whatever we want. Your job is not necessarily to guide us toward, like, tell us the story. We're telling the story through your narration, essentially. You're not the storyteller, you're the narrator. And I think a lot of new players have a really hard time with that, because they're like, I have this story in my mind that I have the beats that I want to hit. But that's the problem with improv, is that you can't have a preconceived idea of what you want, which preconception can still get you pregnant. You can't have a preconceived idea of what you want going into a scene in improv, because somebody else is going to say something you won't expect, and then you won't know how to respond because that's
listening.
not what you had planned. You're not listening. And so if you're trying to DM, you can't just be like, okay, so we're going to go to this town and we're going to talk to these people and we're going to do this thing and then you're going to fight a guy, because there you have to leave it open to, maybe they're going to avoid that town entirely and go somewhere else. They'll come back to that town later. Maybe they'll try to talk their way out of combat. That's the beauty of the whole thing.
Yeah, as a DM, I definitely found myself, like, I think constraining myself to, like, this is what should happen, or this is what I hope happens, but every single time I was surprised, and in a good way. I was like, cool, didn't know that was going to happen. And one of my favorite moments from Critical Role that happened, where it was purely just holy shit, spoilers if you're watching the show, they were gonna go visit this guy at night to get information on a dock. Things went tits up, and they ended up stealing a ship and riding it off into the sunset. And because halfway through the players are like, are we stealing the ship? And they just fucking stole the ship. Like the guards were coming because they were like, what's happening? And they were like, they stole a fucking ship. And Matt Mercer's like, okay,
Okay.
we'll prepare for this. Or they're in a city and there's so many times he's like, well, here's all this stuff that I wrote that is no longer relevant. And he's not mad. He's just being like,
Yeah.
I prepared for an encounter. You guys quickly found your way out of it.
Yeah.
And you moved on, and cool. Well, that's it. We're good. We're done.
And that's not to say that there aren't shitty players out there, because there definitely are. I mean, you can,
Of course.
I have dark vision.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to surrender. Well, it's hard to differentiate the player from the character. Because what I love about Critical Role is those players do that. They're like, they ask themselves, would my character know that, or what would my character do? And they play that accordingly. They don't try to win. They try to play the game. And that's hard.
And that's
when
it's a hard skill to learn.
Yeah, because we've played so many games, so many role-playing games where there's a story that you follow and you are the hero and you win. And in this game, you could die and your character will permanently be dead. And that is that.
I mean, it's like kind of the thing that I loved about Enter the Gungeon. I'm not trying to suck my own dick over here, but like, your character got shot in the leg and had a limp for the entire adventure in the tutorial. Of course, I wasn't going to have you die while I was teaching you the mechanics of the game, but it still had a consequence that I wasn't necessarily anticipating.
Right, and that's the shit that you just got to roll with.
And you guys could have died. It could have been like a 1-episode session. I mean, the Cthulhu system is pretty dang punishing.
Madness is a real thing in that world.
Madness is a real thing, but you guys still made it to the end. Like, not everybody survived, and that's part of the game. But like, you guys did the thing. The story was completed, which is lucky on my end. Like, it didn't have to be completed, and if some other things happened, if maybe in some portions of the dungeon you guys did a different thing, maybe we would have never even gotten to that end goal and you would have stayed alive. I mean, there were escape routes that I put in the game that you guys just happened to never find. Yeah. And so it was like, I'm never going to push you guys in that direction. As a DM, you're not supposed to push people. Yeah. You're supposed to kind of nudge them in. You're supposed to put the inklings, put the seeds of the ideas of the things without explicitly saying, go do the thing.
I think that's the part I struggle with is preparing for all possibilities. And I think you have to surrender to the fact that you won't be able to prepare for all the possibilities because, I mean, call me crazy. I gave my players in my D&D campaign some potentially campaign breaking magical item. It was magical paints that allowed them to, whatever they painted became real. And I was like, we'll see. And they kind of were like, immediately were like, oh, cool, we can fast travel now. And I'm like, I didn't consider that.
Let me paint money.
And I was like, oh, shit. But they were very creative in that they got trapped in a room and the bad guys were trying to get them to go through a barricade to a very dangerous room that had been sealed off. So they used the paints to paint a door to another door earlier in the cavern to come out and ambush those other creatures. I was like, that's fucking creative as hell. Like, well done. Like, that's absolutely excellent. That's the cool stuff I recommended, you know?
Yeah, and then you're like entering the world of homebrew. Like, you have just your own ideas, and then you move away from D&D and you just start to kind of use it as a template, as the rule set of the game, but you can make it in the future, or you can make it, still high fantasy, but maybe a bit more gritty, or like combine things, throw things in and sprinkle all these things together. And then you just have like a cool adventure. You can feel satisfied as the DM because not only are you like actively making something, it's like script writing, it's world building, it's creating something. It's in some form or another art. And then you get to share that with people who then on their end can enjoy it and they can take it in. They get to explore this thing. They get to do cool shit like kill monsters and use magic and stuff. And if you take that next step forward, like I just commissioned an art piece of the character that I'm currently playing as. And it's like sweet now to have that visual reference of like this one of a kind character that is mine. And I can look at it and be like, okay, that's the character that I'm playing, like I'm role playing when I am playing the game. And it's like, really, I don't know, it's special. It's cool.
Yeah. I think there's so much about this that obviously people got put through the ringer early on, where they're like, "You're playing make believe." It's like, yeah, and guess what? It's really fucking fun. It's really fucking fun to, and I'm sure the people that were super into it early on probably didn't help with its brand, because I've also, gone to my local board game shop, which I fucking love. It's called Fair Game. It's the goddamn best, and they have, before the pandemic, we're having daily gaming events, and there was a D&D day, and I remember went in there one day and just hearing people talk, and the way that I was just like, dude, I would never sit down at this table with you. Like, I just won't. It would be so uncomfortable.
No, the exact same thing. When I first moved to this city, and I got like my first job here, it was right next to a gas station. And on my lunch breaks, I would go to the gas station and get like chips and a drink or whatever. And the cashier was this like the greasiest dude I've ever met in my life. And he wore like the archery wrist leathers.
Oh boy.
And like would always have just a t-shirt with like wolves on it or whatever. And I went in wearing a shirt with a bear on it once, and he confronts me and goes, "Oh dude, that shirt is like sweet. Like it's a super cool bear. It had like, I was holding an axe and a shield." And he was like, "Do you like play D&D at all?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I play D&D." And he's like, "Well, we do like D&D down at this place in the thing like every Tuesday or whatever." And I'm like, "Yeah, man, yeah." He's like, "You should check it out." And I'm like, "Okay, no." Because you asked me. If it was anybody else, I probably would have taken him up on it.
Well, that's also how you had to find people to play with, right?
Yeah.
Like now it's so easy to find whomever. Like you go to there's places, because you also mentioned that there are so many companies that are creating ways to make this great. I actually supported 2 Kickstarters. One's called Dungeon Alchemist, where it basically uses an AI system to build your dungeon for you. Ooh. And I got another one called Let's Roll, which essentially will also be what's the word I'm thinking of? Integrate with Dungeon Alchemist, where essentially you can. It's almost like its own. I'm trying to describe what it is, but essentially you can run your campaign through it. It has dice, it has character sheets, it has all that sort of stuff. But it will integrate with Dungeon Alchemist, and it gives you this beautiful 3D environment that's auto-populated by AI, and you can adjust it any way that you see fit. And just there's forums and everything where it's like, hey, I want to test this out. Who wants to join my campaign? Which I would never do. Ever. I would never join with a bunch of strangers, because I'm like, that to me would be one of my social nightmares. Talk about Doug hates stuff and Doug watches awkward videos. It's like Doug joins a random D&D game. Like, no.
Yeah. There's so many tools out there. I mean, I've been using a map making tool called Incarnate, which is you just paint, and like you can paint out land and paint inland and get water and all these different textures for like land. And then you just get a stamp brush for all these different assets like trees and mountains. And,
that's really
and
cool.
You make villages and towns and cities. And it's a very cool program that I have used now to help my DM make up an entire like homebrew world for our campaign. And it's sweet. Like, it's just super cool that all these things are super easily accessible, free a lot of the time, just because they're people who have been, playing D&D for 40 years, and they're now adults, and they're in coding, or they're in, production of some kind, or engineering of some kind, and they're just have these sweet ideas, and they are just for bettering the community, and so they just put them out there and they just let you use them.
That's awesome. Where do you find, or do you think that maybe in the near future D&D could become super corporate, like Disney level corporate, where we could be seeing a story in 20 years from now where someone didn't get their bonus from their contract because the newest book that came out didn't distribute as well as it should have?
I don't know. Kind of hope not.
I can see it headed that way. Like, I think we're in a booming age of this sort of stuff. It's become less taboo. Taboo is not the right word.
I don't know. I think it's a slippery slope, because I don't like the Dungeons and Dragons video games. Like, there's a lot of them, but I think that takes away the fun, because there's only so many things you can do in a video game. Yeah. And so I think that kind of takes away from that experience, or it takes away from just the the expectation, which is I can do whatever I want, and then I go play a video game and I can't do whatever I want.
Yeah.
And then there's also I don't know if there's like talks of a movie or a TV show, but I don't want a freaking Dungeons and Dragons TV show. Like, I don't care. Like, that's like I make the TV show.
Yeah.
I like the serialized week to week episodic thing is me playing the game. I don't need to watch Henry Cavill be a sorcerer and like fight, and I don't need. Like, I get it. I got it. I can do it. If I wanted that, I could make a character based off of Henry Cavill as a sorcerer, and then I could put Henry Cavill as the profile picture on D&D Beyond. It's like I think it is a slippery slope if it ever were to maybe go that direction.
You make a good point in that the beauty of Dungeons and Dragons is the improv part of it, right? It's the creating a character. It's rolling to see what will happen. It's unplanned.
That's the only way they can make it to make a movie is they have the plot outline and then they have all the actors play the game and then act the scenes out. And it would have to take like 4 years, but that's the only way that I would go see a Dungeons and Dragons movie is if I knew during production they were rolling dice for what happened to make the movie. Well,
that's what the Critical Role stuff is. They're making a TV show off of things that they rolled through over 110 episodes in that first campaign that they did. So yeah, you're right. That took several years.
110 5-hour episodes.
Exactly. Which is also a wild thing that someone brought up was that these videos that they have on YouTube have hundreds of millions of views, and these are on average 3 to 4 hour episodes. Like, these are not short. So if you think about
with no less than an hour of ads.
Actually, their ads are pretty short for the most part. I mean, their intros are like 10 to 15 minutes, and then they do like 2 minutes of ads halfway through. So altogether, in 3 to 4 hours, you get maybe less than 20 minutes of ads, which
maybe I just got unlucky.
Maybe you did.
One that I watched.
I usually skip the first 12 to 14 minutes just because I'm like, I don't care what you guys have going on because this is also like 80 weeks ago, so none of it matters to me. But the fact that people are willing to sit there and listen to all that, I mean, there's obviously there's something there, and I think that's great because we get the opportunity to explore that. But also, there's something there that some greasy salesman or business person is going to exploit. They're going to find a way to do it. But I think there are barriers that prevent it, like you said. Like the Dungeons & Dragons Dark Alliance game, I'm like, I'm not really big into those kind of action games anyway. And like you said, it's not D&D. It's based in the D&D universe, and it's got these characters like Drist and Wolfgar and all that sort of stuff that people may recognize, but it's not D&D. It's got a D&D tag on it, but it's not D&D. It's limited. It's linear. Yeah. And apparently it's filled with just absolutely game-breaking bugs. But you're right. Like, I don't want to see some show that's produced. This is D&D. It's like, yeah, I play D&D. Like, I mean, because
what differentiates a D&D world from a Tolkien world, or like what? Like, there's not a lot of differentiation there. I know that there's some original like Dungeons and Dragons characters, but if we're following a wizard and a fighter, and like if we're just following the classes of a D&D campaign. It doesn't matter if they're fighting. If in one episode they're fighting a beholder, because it's still just 4 people with varying personality like tropes fighting a monster,
right? And not only that, it's like part of
it is
a hot
take. I'm getting frustrated. I don't know. Are people gonna get mad at me because I don't want the Dungeons and Dragons movie?
It's like oh. He got bitten by the snake. I hope his constitution's high enough to repel the poison. Like just all the things that come along with it. Like combat can sometimes for some people be a slog, but at the same time, it's like, oh, I try to hit him and I miss. It's like, oh, did he roll? Like everything's like, oh, he wasn't too stealthy. He must have rolled low on his stealth. It's all those elements that build tension and create these branches of different realities. Like, it's all part of living it, and I think it's hard to build something out on that isn't improvised. So yeah. So that's that.
It is.
Story here is go and play Dungeons and Dragons. It's fine. It's easy to do. Try it out. If you're curious and you've never done it before, like I was, just find some people. It's very easy. It's accessible. It's affordable. Go try it out. Give it a try.
And if you're trying to play some tabletop board games, join the Mind Gap Discord. There's people trying to play board games all the time.
We'll totally play with you guys. I'm totally going to, once I get my one shot done, just ship it over to the Discord and be like, who wants to play this with me? Because I'm going to DM it. By the way, I'm thinking about what would Noah do in this situation as I'm building out different situations, and I can't ever figure it out because Noah is, an enigma.
Go find the nearest horse to fuck.
My favorite thing is when we did a quick one, and you were like, you were like a bird that was just like rocking and rolling in the tavern, and just
I was the Aarakocra bard.
Yeah, that was amazing. Bard. The bird bard.
Named Feathers.
Slotty's like, I need a game, fellas. I know, buddy. I'm working on it.
We're gonna do it.
I'm working on it. It's. I make progress, and I'm like, oh my god, there's so much to consider. I'm also a perfectionist, so it's it's tough. What's also tough is trying to figure out how to survive encounters. Like how do you build an encounter? Because you don't want to straight up murder your players, and you don't want your players to straight up murder what you've built. And sometimes the best way to figure it out is to put them into an arena and say, let's test this out. Let's see who survives. And honestly, let's go through into the...
Welcome to the Throwdown.
That's right, baby. It's the Throwdown. And we're in it to win it. And just so you know, as we've done on past episodes, referring to the council for the Throwdown, Noah is on that council, but
not this time.
Not this week. This week, Slotty put together a separate side council to come up with the
excommunicated from the console
for this week. The Splinter Council. So Noah has no idea what we're going to be diving into. So let's take a look here. So, oh boy,
no idea
boy. Okay, this week's Throwdown is the Battletoads. From that Nintendo
Never
game
heard of it.
versus Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Never heard of it. Not familiar.
This is exciting.
I can end the battle right now.
Okay.
I don't need to hear their skills and their abilities.
Okay.
Battletoads only got 3. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got 4. They got the numbers advantage. They win.
I mean, that is a significant advantage. That is very true.
All right, let's do it. All right.
Wow, these toads are young, man. Oh, I guess that makes sense.
What is that? Rash, Zit, and Pimple?
Yeah. I know they're very brutal. You never played Battletoads?
Yes.
Yeah.
I have played the newest Battletoads.
Gotcha.
I've not played the classics. I've never had access to them.
The classics were the very first Dark Souls, if you will. They were
the Dark Souls of the SNES.
Uncharacteristically difficult to the point where it was impossible to do it without using Game Genie and giving yourselves infinite lives.
Well, the freaking TMNT NES game was hard too.
Yeah, that game. Whew,
and I have played that one. I played a lot of the TMNT games.
Yeah, that game was also extremely difficult. The speeder level was brutal. I would play through those first 3 levels, and then I would just shut the game off. Because I was like, what's the point after this? It's just memorization
at that point. It's not even playing. It's like Guitar Hero, like learning a song on Expert. It's just, you're not playing, you're just memorizing what the muscle memory is.
Yeah. And it was, the first level is the most deceiving one because it's fun. And you're fighting shit, you're beating shit up, and you're like, cool. And then you go to the next level, and it's like, cool, you're climbing down this rope, down this tunnel, and it's like, oh, you're still fighting shit. You gotta dodge some things, birds will clip your thing. And then you get to the 3rd level, and it's like the speeder level, and it's like you said, there's no fighting. It's just twitch and muscle memory. And after that, that's like pretty much what everything is.
That's the worst review of a game. The first level of this game was very deceiving because it was fun.
The rest was just hard for the sake of being hard, and there's like 12 levels, and there's no way you're gonna make it through with like 3 lives, and they cap out your continues. And if you play with 2 players, you can hurt each other. Like you can inadvertently punch each other.
I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, it was. I was like, why play with two players is a liability. You can kill each other. It's incredible. So there's a lot of hyperlinks. I'm probably not going to get to all of them. But let's see here. So the Battletoads, the Battletoads have like the super attacks. Like if they land them, it's like they're when I would know like when you would punch, like their fists would get huge and punch guys, or their kicks and things like that. They could his jump kick for Rash turns into a giant axe. That's strange. Sidearm slash, steel claw strike, spring and stamp. But they seem like brawlers to me. Like there's not a lot of technique involved with these guys. And I mean, if they could, because the thing too is like it's not just like they can always pull off some of the massive stuff. They kind of have to get a combo, and their bodies are their weapons. And I think they'll get some hits off. But I think the Ninja Turtles, at the end of the day, there's more of them.
It's tough. It is tough because there's more of them. They use weapons.
Yeah.
Compared to the Battletoads, which just punch, kick.
Yeah,
punch.
Run. I feel like there's more finesse with the Ninja Turtles. There's more. Obviously, they were trained. They were trained by Splinter, in the art of ninjutsu. And
I also don't want to necessarily be that guy, but in the last Nickelodeon show of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, they did survive the end of the universe.
Well, I think the achievements of the Ninja Turtles is definitely, I think, far exceeds.
I think in a street fight, because they both have had the street fight games. Just the side scroll beat 'em ups.
Yeah,
if we're doing that. If we're just doing who would win in a side scroll beat 'em up, I gotta give it to the Turtles. They got weapons.
Yeah, even if you did a 3-on-3, I still give it to. Are
the Battletoads toad-sized?
They would be the same size as the Turtles.
Okay.
Yeah. I think based on their... Does it say how tall these guys are? Yeah, like one of them is just like 6'2".
Okay. And that's like...
Another 7'3".
Because they are strong.
Yeah.
Like they're like they can wob. I mean, those speeders, they're going fast.
Yeah.
They're going real fast. They can hang on. They don't got seatbelts. They're just on them.
Yeah.
Right? So, and their hand turns into giant axes and hammers and shit. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's... I will give them that. I think that they are extremely strong. Or, stronger than me. I'm sure a Battletoad could beat up me. But that's not the fight. I'm not fighting a Battletoad. 4 highly trained martial artists in very specific weapon classes that have taken on, much higher threats than the Battletoads have.
Yeah, I think they're experienced. The Ninja Turtles experience what they've accomplished. And it's not to say that the Battletoads wouldn't get some hits off, but I mean, I look at it as it was like what's the guy? Kimbo Slice, right? This street fighter back in the day didn't really make it in the MMA. There's a guy who was big, strong, brutal, was doing backyard fights and winning. And you go to the MMA where these are highly trained athletes, who know mixed martial art. I look at that's the comparison to me. Like, if they land a blow, it's gonna fucking hurt. But these turtles also have shells, man. They've got extra defense. They get +1 to AC automatically out of the gate because they're turtles.
Hold on. I'm just gonna roll for who wins the fight. That's not how that works. I rolled a D20. That's not.
I was like, I don't understand how that's gonna work.
D4. We got a D4 here. Positives, negatives, all the same. And it's just kind of like a joke. It's not actually meant to
I was like, I'll let the joke play out. Yeah, for me, it's the Ninja Turtles, man. The Ninja Turtles are gonna win. Through and through. Even if it's a straight 3-on-3 and one of them sits out, I still think it's the Ninja Turtles that beat the Battletoads.
Michelangelo sits out.
Yeah, right. Because he's too distracted anyway. Yeah, for sure. So it's gonna be Ninja Turtles for the win.
Yeah. Ninja Turtles for the win.
There it is. That's what I'm talking about. That's what we were missing. So I don't have any of the sounds this week because Justin took him with him on his secret mission to vacation. But I was still able to play the theme song. You're welcome. Even though Noah couldn't hear it. That's not the point.
I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, it's not the point. We're working through it all. But yeah, that was that was the show. Thank you all for hanging out with us, and let's also start with some recommendations. Noah, what do you have to recommend to folks this week?
Oh, I mean, season 2 just came out. I'm not gonna recommend Ted Lasso. Are you kidding me? Justin's not on the show. No, I'm gonna recommend an Amazon show called Tales from the Loop.
Ooh.
It is really tight. It's kind of an anthology, kind of like an overarching story, but it's sort of a Black Mirror, sort of a Twilight Zone kind of thing. But it all takes place in one town, and it's very high concept, very kind of just fun, goofy, weird, not necessarily scary, but a little creepy, all based on just art by this Swedish artist. And the producers of the show, like every episode of the show, they were given just a piece of this guy's art and wrote a script around it.
So is it like an anthology?
Yeah, kind of.
Oh wow, I have not heard about this at all. I'm totally going to check this out.
It's very cool.
That's amazing.
It was the first time I was on the show, I thought about it. I was like, I think that's what I'm going to recommend. And then I recommended a fucking book. I'm like, yeah, it's
Tales from the Loop. I'm going to have to check that out. That's really, really cool. Nice. I'm going to recommend a game that I've been playing a lot lately. Just on my own. It soothes me. And I'm a huge tower defense guy. I love tower defense games. Like, I'm always a sucker for them. And there's one called Element TD. And it's on Bloons TD.
Bloons TD6.
I do have that game too, mostly for Natalie. I'm lying. I bought it before Natalie was born. But I used to play it on the Flash, one of those Flash sites. But it's called Element TD, and it's really good. You can get it on Steam. I think it's relatively cheap. And
is it like Bloons Tower Defense?
It's really cool. You basically, use different elements or strong against other creatures of different elements, and it's a lot of fun. It's challenging. It's got some replayability, and I really enjoyed playing it. It's fun. You should check it out. And also, if you haven't already, you should check out Back for Blood. You got the beta happening this week, so August 5th through the 9th, and
beta
we
for
will
blood.
begin Back for Blood. If you like zombies, first-person shooters, co-op, and multiplayer, it's gonna be a good one. I'm already recommending it because I played it for 2 hours in an alpha. So there you go.
Playing for many more.
Many more. It's totally gonna happen. So
and next weekend.
Yeah, absolutely. Whenever it comes back around before it launches in October. Super excited for that. Noah, tell everyone where they can find you and how they can check out your stream, sir.
So, as far as my personal social medias go, I am at atnoahreno everywhere. That is ATNOAHRENO on all mostly platforms. And you can also follow Legally Not Me at JJPogChamp69 on Twitter and at JJPogChamp on TikTok for goofy, funny, fun time content.
For sure. I love the thing you did with the unexpected TikTok you did with Destiny.
I know. That was real, too. I truly was like just making a bit about Destiny. I was making a joke about how I do not like Destiny 2. And I went to launch the game, and on recording, my computer crashed the moment I clicked launch Destiny. And it just was that kind of content that we're all kind of trying to get out here.
It made my day. That absolutely made my day. And you all can find MindGap at MindGap Podcast on all social medias. You can check us out wherever you find your podcasts, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's this is the stuff Justin does, Spotify, Good Pods, Podbean,
Stitcher, Pocket Casts,
the
Apple Music.
Yeah, all of them.
Spotify.
We're there. Go check us out. And it would mean the world to us if you could leave a review, and share us around. If there's a clip, if there's an episode that you like, just fire it out there in the ether. It would mean the world to us. We'd really, really appreciate it. You can also check out our YouTube channel at MindGap Podcast. We post all of our episodes there, as well as highlights from our Twitch streams and our episodes. It's a grand time. And also, please check out 2east8th.com. Justin and Drew have some great stuff going. They're always working on projects. Sid Penrose came out recently. You should absolutely go check out that video. You can find it on YouTube, but follow 2east8th on all social medias and see what those guys are getting themselves up to. Once again, Noah, thank you so much for stepping in and hanging out. This was an absolute pleasure.
Thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
That's what I love to hear. Not paying him to say that. So, with that being said, I want to say, Noah, to you, thank you.
And Doug, thank you.
And to our Twitch chat, thank you.
And Twitch chat, thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you.
And listeners, thank you.
And you all have a dandy fucking week.
Mind Gap Podcast.